Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Tuesday evening, May 20, 2025. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you all get this video up to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more persons who are in the path of these tropical systems so that we can keep everyone safe, especially during the peak months of Atlantic hurricane season. That's August through to October. Share this video with your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Please ensure that you all utilize the progress bar that's located at the bottom of the video, as well as the timestamps that are located not only in the comment section but the video description, so that you can skip to the points in the video that you want to see the most in order to save time, because we know that the videos over here with the Jamaica can be very long. Leave a comment down below letting me know what that's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let's just take a look at the Atlantic hurricane and tropical storm activity based on data from 1944 to 2020, and we can see that for the time period in May that we're located, we usually receive an uptick in activity, both regarding the reds and the yellows that represents hurricanes or hurricanes and tropical storm activity for sure. But as of right now, not really seeing much of anything across the Atlantic. Definitely dry for the most part. Hurricane center not showing much of anything either, but we know once we get into the peak months, August, September, October, there's going to be a different story being told. However, if we take a look at the tropical and subtropical cyclone points of origin and tracks based on data from 1851 to 2023, looking at the time period May 21 to May 31, all of these yellow dots right here across the Atlantic represent where we've had some kind of storm form, and the lines that are attached to them shows the direction in which they move. We see one right here to the south of Haiti pushing northward, two of them to the north of the Dominican Republic, a couple of them across the Western Caribbean, two right here to the southwest of Jamaica. And we see that most of these have for the most part pushed northward and then towards the open waters of the Atlantic. We also see an abundance of them across the eastern Pacific near Mexico as well, most of which pushed out to the west. Some of them actually came into Mexico. It's gonna be interesting to see how this year plays out. Will we actually get something forming within the next 10 days before we head into June? Only time will tell at this point. But regarding the sea surface temperature anomaly maps, this map just came out yesterday, May 19, and we can see that we still have an abundance of warm water across the entire Atlantic, extending from the Gulf into the Caribbean across the main development region. And we know that it is this warm water that we need in order for storms to form. This is the warm water that hurricanes thrive on. There is no shortage of warm water at all. We also see that we're lacking an El Nino across the eastern to the central Pacific. We don't see the very warm waters at all. We know if we have an El Nino, that would mean more systems forming in the Pacific, thus causing more upper level wind shear that would tear the tops of thunderstorms apart across the Caribbean into the Atlantic. We don't have that. We have a lack of El Nino. We have more of a neutral like pattern right now, and if you remember, we had a neutral like pattern and we had Hurricane Beryl. So this looks like it's going to be shaping up to be quite an active hurricane season. It's going to be very interesting to see what exactly takes place. And it's not only about how warm the waters are at the surface of the ocean, at the skin of the ocean, but it's also about the ocean heat content. This ocean heat content map right here came out today, May 20, and we can see the blues into the greens into the yellows. They represent that deep warm water. So if we actually get a storm to stall out, to pause over some of this deep warm water, it's going to be firstly sucking up the skin of the ocean, sometimes leaving a cool wake, either whites or blues. But considering that we have deep warm water, especially across the central to the western Caribbean, even the waters to the east of the Windward Islands, it's just going to be stirring up even more warm water. And then we have more, strengthening systems in general. It's going to be very interesting to see how the ocean heat content looks as we head into the peak of hurricane season though. Alright, so let us take a look at some expert insight. This is Andy Hazelton. He's actually an associate scientist at the University of Miami, and from time to time he makes some very accurate posts about what's going to be taking place in the Atlantic. He stated here yesterday at around 3:53, on the Atlantic side of things, I'm guessing it'll probably be mid-June or so before we see our first attempt at tropical cyclone formation for the year. That's about when an MJO pulse will arrive in the basin, so we'd need to watch, especially the Caribbean and the Gulf around at that time. And he highlighted some maps here, and he mentioned an MJO pulse. And basically all he's saying is that there's going to be an era of rising era. The greens represent that rising era, so we see it propagating. First of all, this is the world right here at the bottom, and we see the rising era and the timeline right here on the left. So we see May 26 all the way over into, I think, the first week of June. That's where it's going to be situated across, let's say, the Indian Ocean to the Western Pacific, and then we see that it's slowly pushing eastward into the Eastern Pacific. And then look at all of the greens that represent our neck of the woods, the Caribbean into the main development region. Look at the time period that's going to be taking place around, let's say, June 1 into maybe June 11. And it's not only the Euro model that's here that's showing this, but if we take a look at the GFS, we actually see the consensus, and we know that when we have agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. So this is what he's highlighting: the MJO, the rising air, which means that we're going to be getting more clouds becoming thunderstorm clouds, becoming more organized, becoming tropical depression, tropical storms. That is what's going to be taking place as we head into the early to mid part of June. And whatever happens, I'll definitely be here to keep you posted, just in case. Alright, so we're going to be looking at what the US Climate Prediction Center came out with today. This post came out from the forecaster Novella. We're looking at the time period from May 28 to June 3, as well as the time period from June 4 to June 10. And across the Caribbean, where we have Jamaica, don't see much of anything expected for Jamaica for the time period from May 28 to June 3. We see some browns that represent below normal rainfall, as we can see here on the key on the bottom. And we see that across the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico into the Leeward Islands. We see some rainfall across the southwestern Caribbean into portions of Central America. We also see some red patterns across the eastern Pacific. The reds represent tropical cyclone formation probability, just a 20 to at least a 40% chance, especially by the end of May into early June. We see that dwindles down as we head into June 4 to June 10 time period. But we also see the rainfall in the light shades of greens, the above normal rainfall probability, extend from Central America all the way over into the Western Caribbean. So I think it's kind of coming in line with what Andy Hazelton was just showing on his Twitter page. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what plays out. We know that what the US Climate Prediction Center usually shows is not 100% set in stone, so please take these forecasts with a grain of salt, just in case they don't come to fruition. Taking a look at the US National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook that came out today, 7:21 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is actually 6:21 p.m. Jamaica time. Tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, we can see a ridge of high pressure right here to the north of Hispaniola, another ridge of high pressure right here towards the north of the Cabo Verde Islands. And we know these ridges of high pressure are responsible for sending all of the easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. And we can still see that we have that tropical wind that came off of Africa a day or so ago, still right here to the southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. Remember a couple days ago, if not yesterday, it was more, right here off the coast of Africa. We can also see a lot of broken orange lines, a lot of blue spike lines associated with troughs and frontal systems across the northern portion of the North Atlantic. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before we lost sunlight, we can firstly make out all of the clouds associated with the troughs and the frontal systems across the northern portion of the North Atlantic. We can also make out the clouds associated with that tropical wave right here across the waters of the main development region's intertropical convergence zone. And we can also make out the low to mid-level flow of the clouds being steered from east to west, all courtesy of the ridges of high pressure to the north. We can also make out some high cirrus clouds being streaked off from some thunderstorms off of northern Venezuela. Those high cirrus clouds streaking off across the eastern Caribbean into the main development region right there from southwest to northeast. Those clouds don't have any form of rainfall within them. We'll be talking more about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Tuesday, May 20, 2025. It was stated that rainfall would have been in the forecast of parts of eastern Jamaica on Tuesday morning, also affecting sections of some northern and western parishes in Jamaica on Tuesday afternoon. And we know eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey, like Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew. Western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, like Hanover, St. James, Trelawny, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. While when it comes to our northern parishes, we're talking about those parishes on top, like Hanover, St. James, Trelawny, St. Anne, St. Mary, and Portland. And what ended up happening? As early as 4:30 a.m., the Cuban Doppler radar imagery was posted right here on our Twitter page with the Jamaica, as well as on our Instagram page with the Jamaica, on our TikTok page with the Jamaica, and on our Facebook page with the Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there as we make posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss. So we can see that at around 4:30 a.m., the Cuban Doppler radar imagery was showing some amount of isolated shower activity. We see the light shades of greens into some slight yellows that represent moderate to slightly heavy rainfall coming into sections of eastern Jamaica, but it was more so on the northeastern side, so mainly Portland spilling into sections of St. Mary at that time. And then at around 3:01 p.m., the visible satellite image was posted, and it highlighted some clouds bringing some overcast skies, if not some isolated thundershowers, to sections of Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawny, St. Anne, St. Mary, and we can see it all right here on the visible satellite image. Look at these parishes covered: Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, section of Trelawny, St. Anne, especially section of St. Mary, definitely gotten on the action, while it was more so sunny to partly cloudy across the rest of the island's southern parishes into eastern Jamaica. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before we lost sunlight, just like what we predicted in yesterday's video, more of an east-southeasterly or a southeasterly flow, then all of these clouds piling up across sections of some western and northern parishes. Then when we had that convection, the upper level wind shear blew those high cloud tops, the cumulonimbus clouds, off towards the south, just as we stated. And we saw that even when we're losing the sunlight, we slid some clouds across sections of western Jamaica, bringing some amount of rainfall out west. Regarding the infrared close-up satellite imagery, this map does indeed confirm the convection that took place today. We see the blues into the greens, into the yellows, oranges, and reds represent that cumulonimbus cloud activity. We also make out the sparkling white dots that we know represent some amount of lightning strikes, if not lightning flashes. Definitely has some thunderstorm activity across sections of the cockpit country. Sections of Hanover, Westmoreland definitely got in on some of the action for sure. If we take a look at the live camera here, showing halfway tree in St. Andrew, we can definitely see where it was sunny for the most part today as expected. At around 12:51 p.m. we can see people walking about, going about their business, people in their vehicles going about their business. Definitely fair conditions for the most part in halfway tree today. And I'd like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to see more live streams like this, just visit See Jamaica on YouTube. They have these live streams for your viewing pleasure, and they're planning on increasing the amount of cameras that they have in and around the island. So subscribe today so that you don't miss out. Taking a look at some of the comments that came in today on our Instagram page, we had the great China. I think finally little rain in St. Anya. Thanks for confirming. Marlon _1 God stating Clarendon hot. One Ryan dot underscore stating heavy rain in my area, Hanover. Thanks for confirming. Even on our threads page, we had Sylvia Bando stating a steady downpour of rain continued for quite a while in Brownstown a short while ago. Thanks for confirming that as well. Even on our Facebook page, we had one comment from am I gonna butcher this name? Zujeng. I think no joke, me didn't even wanna rain. So I'm guessing they got some of that rainfall across northern and western Jamaica. Alright, so let us reload the very latest still image from the Weather Nerds website. Let us see what's happening right now. The very latest still image is showing 0045 UTC, which is actually around 7:45 p.m. So this just came out 15 minutes ago, considering that it is 8 p.m. right now. And we can see some clouds right here to the southwest of the island, associated with the convection that was being sheared off towards the south. We also see some milky whitish shades that represent some cloud cover. Most of that rainfall is possibly just to our west or to our west-northwest as we speak, while the rest of the island is definitely in the clear for the most part. Let us see if the latest Cuban Doppler radar, the latest Guantanamo Bay US Navy radar, or the latest Cayman radar can confirm what's taking place right now. Unfortunately, it looks like the Cuban Doppler radar glitched out at around 10:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 9:20 a.m. Jamaica time. So more than likely it's showing what was taking place this morning. Just some isolated shores to the northwest of the island, to the southwest of us. The Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, US Navy radar. Not showing much of anything across northeastern Jamaica or southeastern Cuba, but we do see some rain bands right here across the western peninsula of Haiti. Regarding the Cayman radar, however, it's actually confirming that rainfall that came off of western Jamaica today. Then, as we can see, most of it dissipated. You see the greens, the blues represent some moderate to light rainfall pushing off towards the west right there. We're grateful for the Cayman radar, usually always up and running for sure, confirming all of that rainfall that pushed off the west coast of the island right here. Definitely makes sense with what we see happening on the infrared for sure. Taking a look at what's happening right now, according to the live camera here from C Jamaica's YouTube channel, showing the flat bridge, we can see people in their vehicles going about their business. Nothing significant taking place in terms of bad weather, and this should be the order of the evening for the most part in this era, or the night. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see about 27 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston, and by about 4 a.m. on Wednesday, temperature should dip down to about 25 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 24 degrees Celsius in Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, this map from the GFS is valid for 18Z on Wednesday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Wednesday. We can see Jamaica right here embedded in some yellows and some slight oranges. That represents at least 1 degree Celsius above normal temperatures. I know the normal temperature for the month of May across Jamaica is around 89 degrees Fahrenheit, and when that's converted to degrees Celsius, that's around 31.1 degrees Celsius. So it should be receiving anywhere from 31 point, well, not 31.1, but 31.6, all the way up to at least 32.6 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Wednesday. And we have at least one maintenance outage advisory here from my JPS Online's Twitter page that we have to highlight. I know that we have to highlight this because know that when we have power outages somewhere across the island, it can definitely make the heat feel even worse because we don't have our fan or our AC to cool us down. So if you live or work in these areas, or if you have friends or relatives who live or work in these areas, please let them know that a power outage is coming their way on Wednesday, May 21, 2025. We're referring to Kellet to Louidasville in the parish of Clarendon, from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we have some tips right here to beat the heat as usual. It states here, dress down, wear lightweight clothing and use sunscreen. Check on others, including children, elderly people with medical conditions and pets. Be cool, stay indoors and make use of fans and air conditioners. Avoid alcohol and caffeine as they can make dehydration worse. Limit non-essential, strenuous activity during the hottest parts of the day. And I cannot stress enough the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day, even if you're not thirsty. Put away those sugar drinks and drink water instead as well. Taking a look at the dry air map, we know that the dry air is represented by what we see here on the key on the bottom. That's the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites. Within those reds, you can see an abundance of dry air off the coast of Africa right here. You can see an abundance of dry air across the Gulf into the Western Caribbean and the Bahamas. The dry air is responsible for keeping the atmosphere stable, making it harder for it to rain, making it harder for us to get storms this time of year. But what we're liking, that we're seeing, is the yellows. The yellows represents the low end of the scale in terms of dry air. And we also see some blues. The blues represent that moist air that we see across the central to the eastern Caribbean, the intertropical convergence zone of the Atlantic, and even the Pacific. We want to see the low end of the scale in terms of dry air as well as the moist air, that we can get more rainfall to keep water in our pipes for sure. But regarding the Saharan dust forecast, for 18 UTC on Wednesday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Wednesday, we can see the browns represent the Saharan dust, the brunt of it, across Africa into portions of, let's say, southeastern Europe and Asia. The vigorous plume is represented by these dark shades of browns, representing anywhere from a 50 all the way up to 1,000 in the dust concentration near ground, the intensity. All of that, as we know, represents that very hazy skies that can trigger some amount of respiratory illnesses in some persons, asthma, sinusitis, you name it. So what we're indeed grateful for is that the little Saharan dust that's trailing across the Caribbean into portion of the Caribbean, across the main development region into the Caribbean, all of that is representing anywhere from at least a 1 all the way up to an 8, maybe just a 29 right here off the coast of Africa. Nothing significant that any of us in the Caribbean will notice at all. We're indeed grateful that this is the forecast for 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Regarding the wave forecast for tomorrow, still seeing those light shades of blues to dark shades of blues extending from the Gulf, the Bahamas into the Caribbean. That represents anywhere from 0.5 meter wave height all the way up to 1.5 meter wave height. And that's because of the winds that are expected. We see the winds coming in from the east and then curving northward into the Gulf, more of a southeasterly flow over there, averaging anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 knots, maybe even gusting to 20 knots, especially we have the brightest greens across portions of the central Caribbean right here to the north of the ABC Islands. And if we zoom in on Jamaica's wave forecast, let us see, to the north of Portland up to 1 meter wave height expected, north of St. Anne 0.9 of a meter wave height expected, 0.7 of a meter wave height expected to the north of Hanover, 0.7 of a meter wave height expected to the south of Westmoreland, 1 meter wave height expected to the south of St. Elizabeth, 0.8 of a meter wave height expected to the south of Clarendon, and to the south of St. Thomas, 1.3 meter wave height expected. And that's because of the winds that are expected. We see more of an easterly flow for sure, and especially on the south coast where we have the brighter greens, averaging up to at least 16 knots for sure to the south of Kingston, same speeds to the south of Westmoreland, to the north 15 knots. And we also see where the air is going to be piling up. Wherever we have the least amount of winds, that's where all of the air is going to be piling up. And then we have those clouds building, and we have the convection taking place, low level clouds becoming mid level clouds, then we have the cumulonimbus clouds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And what's the direction that the upper level winds is going? Coming in from the northwest. So if we get some more convection tomorrow, especially out west, those cloud tops will be sheared off towards the southeast. Something similar to what happened today when we had the convection out west. You saw the cloud tops being shearing off to the southeast, bringing more overcast skies to sections of some southwestern coastal areas. So we could get something similar to that on Wednesday, with most of these clouds pushing from east to west. But regarding the actual rainfall forecast maps now, this map from the Euro and this map from the GFS are both valid for 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 5 a.m. Jamaica time. And what do we see on both maps? The blues represent some isolated showers out east. We're talking about eastern Portland, eastern St. Thomas, maybe with some isolated showers. And we know how these things go. Sometimes it shows eastern Jamaica, but it's especially biased to the north coast, Portland, St. Mary. We'll see how that actually plays out. And then by about 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's actually 2 p.m. Jamaica time, look at what the Euro and the GFS are showing. Both maps are showing rainfall across sections of some central and western parishes, especially the Euro trying to incorporate eastern Jamaica. We'll see how that plays out either way. I'm more inclined to believe what the GFS is showing. Definitely some rainfall maybe across section of St. Andrew, section of northern St. Catherine, southern St. Mary, section of St. Anne, Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, northern St. Elizabeth, northern Manchester, northern Clarendon getting on some of the action. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. And whatever happens, I'll definitely be here to keep you posted on our other social media platforms, so stay tuned. Even the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps over the next 24 hours are showing that it's going to be raining somewhere in Jamaica. Both maps right here from the Euro and the GFS are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 3 on Thursday, which is all the rainfall that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Wednesday. And we see Jamaica embedded in the greens, and the yellows represents anywhere from 0.15 of an inch of rainfall up to at least 0.4 of an inch of rainfall, especially out west. The GFS going up to at least 0.42 of an inch of rainfall, especially in the northwest. It's going to be very interesting to see how this actually plays out. And whatever happens, we'll definitely take it. We're in the month of May, and in Kingston, whose bar graph is being shown right here at the top, we usually receive close to 140 millimeters of rainfall for the month of May. In Montego Bay, whose bar graph is being shown right here at the bottom, we usually receive close to 6 inches of rainfall for the month of May. And I would like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to find out what your specific parish usually receives in terms of rainfall for the month of May or for the entire year, you can visit weatherandclimate.com, and that website to show that information. And you can use this nice graphic right here that converts rainfall from inches to millimeters. We know that 1 inch of rainfall is about the same as 25 millimeters of rainfall, so you can do the calculations yourself. Alright, so we're going to be looking at what the next 7 days have in store for us, according to the latest Euro and GFS Supercomputer model runs that came out today. So keep your eyes focused on the timestamp right here at the top as we go to the next 168 hours. That stands for the next 7 days. Keep your eyes focused on Jamaica right here as we look for all of this that we see on the key on the right. That's the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and the greens represents inches of rainfall. So let's see what's going to be taking place. So we just showed Tuesday's forecast. We just showed Wednesday's forecast. Let's just head into the Thursday forecast. So 12Z on Thursday, not really seeing much of anything in the morning, that's 7 a.m. And in the afternoon, we see some isolated showers out west. Let us look at Friday too. On Friday morning, not really seeing much of anything on the Euro. Let us see Friday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers out west as well. What does the GFS show for Thursday and Friday? For Thursday morning, we see rainfall to our northeast. We see rainfall to our west. Then on Thursday afternoon, we see that rainfall across the northwest as well, just like what the Euro was showing for Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, not seeing much of anything across Jamaica. Then Friday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers out west, definitely. Drier pattern coming in Thursday and Friday for sure. Let us see what Saturday is showing. On Saturday morning, maybe some isolated showers out east, maybe eastern St. Thomas, Portland. Then on Saturday afternoon, look at that, maybe some isolated showers across some central parishes. That's what Sunday morning is showing too. Sunday morning, maybe some isolated showers out east. Sunday afternoon, look at that. It looks like eastern, central, and western parishes could get in on that afternoon rainfall. What does the GFS show? Saturday morning, rainfall to our north, rainfall to our east. Saturday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers out west. What does Sunday show? Sunday morning, rainfall across the northeast. Sunday afternoon, rainfall across central and western parishes. We have some contrast, we have some similarities. Let's head into Monday morning. Monday morning, we see rainfall to our north. Let us see what Monday afternoon is showing. Monday afternoon, it looks like central, eastern, and western Jamaica could be getting on something. Then we're stopping it right here at the end of the 168 hours. So this is valid for Tuesday, May 27. And look at this. We're starting to get in on an increase in the moisture in and around Hispaniola and Jamaica. We're seeing more dark greens into yellows. That represents anywhere from 3 all the way to maybe 6 inches of rainfall. Let's just see if we have the agreement on the GFS. First of all, Monday morning, rainfall to our north, rainfall across the far eastern end of the island. Monday afternoon, looks like the rainfall is going to be across the northwestern end. Then we're also stopping it at the end of the 168 hours. So this is valid also for Tuesday, May 27. And I think we're seeing some differences for sure. Euro definitely showing a lot of rainfall across the central Caribbean in and around Jamaica. The GFS not so much. More of that rainfall seems to be confined in and around the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, as well as the southwestern Caribbean, eastern Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. We also see an abundance of moisture across the eastern Pacific. Do we see that on the Euro too? Yes, we do, but it's a bit more west, closer to the south of central Mexico. GFS has most of it closer to the south of Guatemala. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out over the next 7 days. But regarding the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps now, this map from the Euro and this map from the GFS are both showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until Tuesday, May 27. And we can clearly see that the most rainfall over the next 7 days should be across the waters, if not across the land masses of South America into southeastern Central America, because we see the dark reds into the purples and the pinks. That represents 2 all the way up to 5 inches of rainfall for areas such as French Guyana, Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, sections of Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, southeastern Nicaragua getting in on some of that. And we know those areas could definitely pick up on some amount of isolated flash flooding for sure. While we have other areas that are shaded in the greens, yellows, oranges and reds represents anywhere from 0.1 of an inch of rainfall close to an inch of rainfall, especially for areas such as Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, portions of the Leeward Islands, Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, St. Martin, the US and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, sections of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, the Bahamas into Florida, the Turks and Caicos, sections of the Yucatan Peninsula, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras for the most part. And we can clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in agreement with this forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. But regarding Jamaica's total accumulated precipitation, we can clearly see that over the next 7 days from now up until Tuesday, May 27, both the Euro and the GFS are showing that Jamaica is shaded in the greens into the slight yellows, representing anywhere from 15 millimeters of rainfall up to at least 40 millimeters of rainfall. The Euro showing that the most rainfall should be out east up to at least 42 millimeters of rainfall. Is that 42 or is that 48? You tell me. The GFS not so in line with what the Euro was showing for the east. It's more so about the northwest on the GFS, Hanover into St. James and Trelawney. We also see those areas shaded on the Euro. It's going to be very interesting to see how it actually plays out over the next 7 days. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we have the usual thunderstorm activity across a portion of northern South America into a portion of southeastern Central America, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela. We see some isolated showers pushing through a portion of the eastern Caribbean. From the east, we also see the usual thunderstorm activity across sections of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar imagery in and around Puerto Rico, not seeing much of anything across the Leeward Islands or Puerto Rico right now. But if we load these images from earlier today, we saw that northwestern Puerto Rico definitely got a lashing. Some moderate to heavy rainfall in the greens, yellows, oranges, reds. Didn't see much of anything across the Leeward Islands, but we did see some isolated shores across portion of the Dominican Republic. Taking a look at the Barbados radar, not seeing much of anything across Barbados, Martinique, or Dominica right now, but we can make out some isolated shores passing through sections of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines as we speak. Not really seeing much of anything across Trinidad. Well, maybe the eastern ends of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what the wider Doppler radar imagery is showing. We see some rain bands right here across sections of Colombia, sections of northwestern Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname getting on some of the action. And regarding where the rainfall is expected within the next 24 hours, you can clearly see that the most rainfall, at least up to an inch of rainfall, is going to be expected across portions of northern South America, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, section of the ABC Islands, Trinidad and Tobago. We see some isolated shores definitely in store for sections of Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, section of Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, section of southern Guatemala, El Salvador getting on some of the action. And we can clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in agreement with this forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.